I'm Dylan.
I'm Chris.
And today we are going to talk about the Buffalo Bills and their wide receivers, tight ends, and special team core players, kicker, punter, how the return game might look, things of that nature. And Ray Rice, his suspension, he got suspended 2 games. Most people thought he'd be suspended for more than that, and we're going to talk about that. And you know, this kind of Chris tells us almost every show, players doing stupid things. We've talked about Ray Rice before, but it's almost like how do you stop them from doing stupid things? And that's something that we will cover later. But first, we'll cover the Bills, get that out of the way. Um, the wide receiver position, we've said before, um, is arguably one of the most interesting dilemmas the Bills have this training camp with three good, well, two promising young wide receivers and one wide receiver that's kind of been up and down throughout his career, and then a few guys that it's just like, well, you have something there, but it's all speed. So that's a thing. We also have a few big wide receivers. So we got a lot of different guys at that position, and it's definitely saturated. So I guess give a ranking for what you think the wide receivers are for the Bills at the moment, A to F, like we did last show. And do you think any of these guys are going to get cut? And if so, do you think it's going to be like a guy like TJ Graham, or is it going to be a smaller guy like Chris Hogan or something like that? Are they going to try and save money and cut a bigger name, or do you think they're going to cut one of the smaller special team guys? Chris, you can go first.
Well, we certainly have a lot of talent at the wide receiver core. Um, we got Robert Woods, Sammy Watkins, Mike Williams, Marquise Goodwin, Chris Hogan, a couple other guys. TJ Graham, unfortunately, I think TJ Graham needs to go. He was supposed to be this like top speed sprinter, track and field dude, but he never worked out. And when you're playing against a world class sprinter like Marquis, or playing with a world class sprinter with Marquise Goodwin, even if you are really fast, Marquise Goodwin's probably a lot faster than TJ Graham, so it doesn't really matter. TJ Graham hasn't shown much of anything in his few years that he's been here. He has really bad hands. He's not very good at route running, and he isn't even as fast as everyone had expected. So TJ Graham should probably go. Obviously you've got Sammy Watkins, and Sammy Watkins is already making amazing plays in training camp. I've seen a few highlights myself. I've seen a couple really nice sideline catches and a one-handed grab at the end, in the back of the end zone after he was recovering from a fall. He fell, and then he got up just in time to see the ball and snagged with one hand out of the air. And I was like, okay, that was kind of like an old version of Larry Fitzgerald right there. So that was pretty cool. Mike Williams, I don't know if they're going to end up keeping him just because we have so much talent. Like, sure, we traded for him, but do we really need him? I don't know. Like, you would figure that Marquise Goodwin or Robert Woods would be the slot guy, or Robert Woods would be the outside number 2 guy, so with Sammy at number 1. So Mike Williams is just kind of like the odd man out. Like, he's a good receiver, but I don't know if we really need him. So we'll probably make a trade somewhere. Um, you know, what else here? Yeah, that's about it. Like, yeah, I'd see, I could see us trading or cutting Mike Williams, but I don't know. TJ Graham will probably go, hopefully, like I said, but never know. I think our top two are going to be Robert Woods and Sammy Watkins for sure.
What letter grade would you give our wide receiver core?
Letter grade, because I haven't seen Sammy Watkins play in game, like in NFL game, and Robert Woods did have a pretty decent rookie year. Mike Williams is coming off getting stabbed. Is that him? Or was that his brother that got stabbed? Pretty sure it was him that got stabbed. So that's kind of a difficult thing to come back from, especially when you're a right wide receiver and you get stabbed in the leg. If you're watching, it's Mike Williams. Sorry to bring up bad memories, but it was a thing. It happened. I don't know. I'd give us probably a B right now. But it could, depending on how Sammy Watkins ends up playing, it could go up to an A, just because Sammy Watkins has that elite talent that could end up being something amazing.
B. Rip. I was thinking kind of similar, but I may have the lowest grade again. Dylan, how do you feel about the wide receivers? And who do you think's going to get cut, if there are any cuts at all?
Well, I'm very confident in our wide receivers this year. I like what I saw from Robert Woods last year and Marquise Goodwin. Mike Williams, we don't know for sure how he's, number one, going to fit in, and two, how he's going to come back from that. Sammy Watkins, we haven't seen him yet, but we traded up for him, so obviously we're pretty high on him, and we've seen good things from him in the in training camp. I do think some players are going to miss the cut. I'm looking at the roster on the Bills website, and there's a lot of wide receivers listed here. I think, personally, Sammy Watkins will ultimately be our number one guy. That's why we traded up for him to draft him at 4. We gave up 2 first-rounders and a 4th to get him, so obviously there's some sort of... We gave up a lot, so we're committing a lot to him, and it's clear that we intend to use him as much as we can and have him be as helpful to the team as he can be. And then Robert Woods, I think he can be a fantastic number 2 or a complement to Watkins. Really liked him last year. Mike Williams has come in. I did talk a little bit about him in a previous episode a couple back, but when we did a training camp preview, and said that there is a little bit of uncertainty if whether he'll make it or not, but I've been hearing a few sparse good things about him, so he could work out and contribute to some good depth at the position. Marquise Goodwin, obviously a great deep threat. He's going to likely be returning kicks and punts, so he'll be able to help us in the multiple facets of the game. I feel like I might be the only person to mention this guy, but Naaman Roosevelt went to UB. Probably not going to make the team, but we had him on our practice squad back a couple seasons ago, and I think he might have played for us a little bit. But so he's still playing. Maybe if some injuries occur, he'll earn a spot. But I just like seeing UB guys get on the field and getting their chances at the national level. So, and as I was saying, guys like Chris Hogan and TJ Graham, I'm not necessarily saying that they're bad receivers, but they're not. It's going to be hard, I think, for them to make it on our team as more than just like a depth backup receiver. So one, or I don't know, I assume at least one of them, if not both, will make the team as backups, but there's a chance that we do cut them, let them go, and maybe they'll go somewhere else and be solid. backups, but with what we have at the position, I think it'd be tough for them to really make a great impact. And so I'm very happy with our receivers. I think they'll help out. They're a majority of the reason why I'm very high on EJ Manuel this year. We've put the tools around him to succeed. I would probably give if I had to grade us on a scale of A to F, I don't want to say A because I do want to say A, but I don't want to say it because we haven't seen Watkins yet at the national level. Woods and Goodwin each only have 1 year under their belt, and there is uncertainty with Williams. So, but regardless, I'm still confident that we'll have a very productive team of wide receivers out there on the field every week. So I'm just gonna say A minus, and that could very easily become an A if Sammy Watkins pans out to be what we're hoping to be, what we're hoping for him to be. I mean, it's not realistic to say that he's gonna be what AJ Green was to the Bengals his rookie year, but maybe he comes in and he does even better than everyone's been expecting, or maybe he's just average as he acclimates. So that's a big factor that can raise or lower the grade ultimately.
Yeah, it's a position that, like I said, is saturated, but there is a lot of uncertainties, like you guys said. Watkins are comparing him to Randy Moss, but I always go back to, well, he's a rookie, so how much can you really expect out of him in the first place? And you look at Robert Woods, and he had a pretty decent rookie season. You haven't seen a lot from him though, so that's a thing. So you're really inexperienced. I've been doing stats for the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends across the NFL. And the Bills, I believe, have the second most inexperienced wide receiver core in the NFL, behind only Jacksonville. And they have, I believe, the most inexperienced quarterback core in the NFL. So that's the thing. But with Goodwin and Woods and Watkins, you have kind of three different kind of wide receivers. Watkins is supposed to be that hybrid that can do it all, elite wide receiver. He better be elite because you gave up so much for him. So there's no excuses. He's got to be elite. Not necessarily like, oh, he's got to go for 1,500 yards this year, but he's got to show signs of greatness. And next year, really take the next step. And, Woods is a possession wide receiver. He does great route running, and that's what they said going out of college, and that's what he does. Mike Williams, he is very valuable to this team because one thing last year you saw was Robert Woods and Marquise Goodwin and, even Stevie when he was here. We really didn't have that big wide receiver, and now you have it with Mike Williams that he's not necessarily huge, but in the red zone, you can throw the ball up to him and he can go get it. So that's the big deal. You need a guy that can get touchdowns. You can't run reverses at the 20-yard line with Sammy Watkins and expect to get in the end zone. But you can try and throw it up. So I like Mike Williams to stay on the team. TJ Graham, piece of crap. He really is. He's terrible. He can't hold on to the football. He can't catch the football. He can't run routes. Like, he should just stick to running in a straight line. And that is sprinting. Just running in a straight line on a track. That's all he can do. Don't throw a ball at him. He won't catch it. So that's a thing. Marquise, speed, all speed. He can catch too. He showed signs of being a good wide receiver for us. And, he's a change of pace that we can use. And as Dylan said, as we'll most likely talk about later, he's going to help us on special teams a lot. So that's a thing. And the reason why TJ Graham's getting cut, though, more than just because he's a piece of crap, is because Chris Hogan, Marquise Easley, not Marquise, Marcus Easley, those two guys are great special team wide receivers for us. They're good at depth. Easley went 3 years, I believe, when we drafted him, without playing a single down because of like a torn ACL, like a heart problem, and then another major injury. Finally got to play last year, and he was the best special teamer in the league. He didn't go to the Pro Bowl, but he had the most tackles on special teams last year. And that's a big deal. We need a core of special team guys, and that's what we'll talk about later. I read a great article about, how the Bills are looking at that position today. And, Chris Hogan, he's 6'5". He's that big guy you need. We were trying to develop these big guys, Brandon Kaufman and Ramses Barden, people like that. They might not stay around too long. I think we dropped Barden. We may have just cut him. I know we have injuries and we've been cutting people left and right, but that's the thing. So the position I'm giving a B-. Now I feel very generous giving that, although you both gave higher grades than that, and it's only because I don't see it as above average. I see the potential as being above average, but we're grading on now and what the season's going to bring. I don't think this is going to be an above average wide receiver core this year, just because of the inexperience. You can't expect a lot out of them. And, I don't think they're going to be great for us. I've seen the word elite thrown around, and yeah, maybe in 2 or 3 years, 3 or 4 years, you might say elite. But you can't say elite now. They're not that. They haven't done anything to be granted that status. So that's my opinion on that. The next position we're going to cover is tight end, and we sorry about that. We had 4 tight ends to begin training camp: Chandler, Milwaukee, Smith, and Greg. And right now, the only 2 that are healthy are Chandler and Smith. I liked this position. I liked Milwaukee. I thought he was really good with Kansas City, but this is his problem. He always gets injured, so that's a thing. Dylan, any thoughts on the tight ends, and what would you grade our tight ends?
Well, to be completely honest, our tight end position isn't ideal per se, but I mean, I've been a lot less critical of Scott Chandler than a couple of you I know, at least, and a number of other people. I think he's very solid. He's never going to put up the elite numbers, of course, and we know that. We expect that, and sometimes he does make his mistakes. He does slip up. He has had ball security issues, especially in that. Remember that one game where him and Stevie both fumbled in the game, but otherwise, I think he's been, for the most part, pretty reliable. He was there for the whole year to work with EJ throughout the season. Obviously, we have no Jimmy Graham, but there's only one team that does. We don't have a Witten or a Gronkowski or Vernon Davis or anything like that, but I've already talked about how I feel about our backfield and our receivers, so that takes the pressure off of, I don't want to say we don't need an elite tight end, because of course an elite tight end would surely help us, but having the depth that we do at both running back and wide receiver sort of alleviates the pressure put on whoever we put at tight end this year, whether, as of right now, it's looking to be Chandler. If Tony Moeaki can ever come back at any point this season, I don't know how long he's going to be out, but they say it's probably going to be a lengthy recovery. And so I think we still have Chandler. He's huge, 6'7", I believe, and we can have him in the middle catching balls. But we also have there's more threats around our offense that the defenses are going to have to focus on, rather than just what we've had in the recent past, where we've had Jackson and Spiller both struggling with injuries, and then I think our receiving core has gotten a lot better over the past couple of years. So it's I don't want to. I sound like I'm being too repetitive. It's not ideal, but I think it'll definitely suffice, and it's good enough to where I think we can still field a very competitive team this year. But if I had to give it a grade, I don't. This is a tough one because I hadn't thought about the grade part beforehand. But A to F, it's probably C minus maybe, and that's probably one of the lower things I'd give to any position on our team. So I guess we'll see how it plays out during the season.
Damn, Dylan giving out a C, let alone a C minus. Oh my God, we've got Dylan. He's so pessimistic. Chris, what's your opinion of the tight ends, and what grade do you think you're going to give them?
Pretty much in a similar boat with Dylan here. Scott Chandler, nothing special. He's pretty average. He's got hands of stone 60% of the time, all the time. It's an Anchorman reference. But Chris Drag, I had no idea. I don't know if he was supposed to be any good. I know Andy said he was supposed to be decent, but he never played last year. I know he caught one touchdown. Moyaki, no idea. Never really watched him, so I don't know if he's any good. Basically, all I know is Scott Chandler. I don't even know if we have any other tight ends on the roster. I'm gonna look real quick. Okay. Dominique Jones and Lee Smith. I know Lee Smith is a ridiculously good blocking tight end. I'm pretty sure he's like one of the best in the league. So Lee Smith will be the person that we keep. Obviously, Scott Chandler's going to be our starter. Chris Bragg might get a few touches in there. But, I'm not too excited about our tight end core. I would have liked to see us go after a tight end somewhere in the second round last year, this year, but this last draft. But maybe we can do that next year. I don't know. I'm not excited at all. I'm not expecting Chandler to get more than 600 yards receiving, if he gets to that. No more than 50 or 60 catches on the year, if that. We'll probably have 30 drops on the year as well. But right now, as a grade, I'd have to give him maybe, I don't know, I'm going to go lower than Dylan. I'm going to go with a D+.
Oh, damn. Dylan gave a C minus, and he still might be the most, although it's a pessimistic grade for Dylan to give, it's still maybe the most optimistic of the three of us. So, Scott Chandler, I've had my, problems with Scott Chandler. As Chris said, he can't catch the football, and that's a big problem. Ball security is a big deal. And, he's supposed to be the security blanket, that guy that runs a little route 5-6 yards from the line of scrimmage that, I'm in trouble, let me throw to this guy. We're guaranteed a first down. We're guaranteed moving 5, 6 yards down the field. But with Scott Chandler, it's not like that. I remember the Kansas City game because, I blame Scott Chandler for part of Jeff Toole's loss. Because it was such a close game, a drop like this could matter. They were going down, and then it was like third down, and like he completely dropped the ball on like a 3rd and 2, and stalled out a drive, and they could have won the game, if they scored on that drive because it was such a close game that one drop like that could have made the difference. So Chandler, we needed to get a tight end in the draft, and we did, and there are very good ones to choose from. We got a wide receiver in the draft, and they were like, well, we don't need a tight end anymore. Um, they answered offensive line instead. They didn't try and get a tight end in free agency when there were guys like Ed Dixon. Owen Daniels lasted till after the draft, I think, to be picked up. Now Baltimore's like, oh, look at us. We're like the New England Patriots. We have Dennis Pitta and Owen Daniels. Fuck with us. It's like, no. Why didn't we go try and get Owen Daniels? So I'm kind of mad about that. He was sitting there. Lee Smith is one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. It's a shame that you might have to have him in passing situations this year in terms of going out for passes because, he's not, a great fast tight end or a really athletically gifted tight end. He's just, an old school tight end, halfback, fullback guy that blocks real well. Tony Mawaki. He was one of the best tight ends coming out of college. He's played 2 seasons. He played 2010 fully. Had like 50 catches. 2011 he went on the IR. 2012 he had like 40 catches because he was in a 2 tight end set most of the time. And then 2013 he played with us and he didn't play at all. He's hurt now, but he's supposed to be a good sure hand. The one thing about Milwaukee is he is sure-handed. He doesn't drop the ball. He makes these crazy one-handed catches and all that shit. So if he's one thing that Scott Chandler, because Scott Chandler doesn't get hurt very often, he may got hurt last year a little bit, but he's very consistent on staying on the football field. Milwaukee can catch the ball all the time, and it's kind of like, well, you can catch the ball all the time, but you can only catch the ball for 8 games. So you pick which 8, and I guess you want him to catch in the last 8. I guess is what's going to happen. Chris Gregg, I was kind of high on him for a 7th round pick because he didn't really have much opportunity. He was kind of unknown, and he did have a touchdown last year. He's just kind of banged up right now, but I think he should be able to make the team. Milwaukee got a 2-year deal, so it's hard to cut him and not cut Gregg first. So, Gregg might get cut. I'm going to give him a C- as well. It's below average. Chandler is extremely average. Lee Smith is really a good tight end in his position, in his style of position. So that's why I give him a C-. Although Chandler is average to below average, Smith is above average, if not one of the better tight ends in terms of his skill set. So that's why I gave him a C-. So yeah, that's the thing. Next, we are covering special teams. So, this might get kind of boring, but, kicker, we just signed Carpenter, and they think they want to keep Hopkins, too, as a kickoff specialist. And I read today, it's like, that's a big luxury to have, to be able to keep 2 kickers on your roster. When you only have 53 guys to choose from, are you going to cut that extra wide receiver, that, the 4th tight end, the 2nd fullback, the 4th running back, players like that? Are you going to cut one of those guys and keep 2 kickers just for 1 for kickoffs? And there's a punter battle going on between Mormon and Dombrowski or something. So that's a battle. That's not something that Mormon's gonna win. I heard that people think the other kid's gonna win. And returners: Goodwin, McKelvin. Maybe you see Sammy Watkins. Did Sammy Watkins do that in college? I don't know, but he might have. And stuff like that. So, Chris, do you think the Bills will keep two kickers? Do you agree or disagree with that idea? And how do you feel about special teams, and what grade would you give it?
I think we're going to end up keeping two kickers, although I don't really agree with it, because if our season goes like it did last year and in the previous years, we don't really need a kickoff specialist because we're not scoring that many touchdowns. So, just kind of putting that out there. I like the decision to just be like Dan Carpenter. He's got the job. That Hopkins guy is apparently really, really bad at kicking field goals. Apparently, because he can't get that job. So, yeah, I like Dan Carpenter as a kicker. I don't agree with keeping the second kicker for kickoff specialist, but if we can't have anyone who can get the ball down the field far enough, then I guess we can keep Hopkins. At punter, I'd be really disappointed to see Brian Mormon go. The other punter's name is Jake Dombrowski. Went to Harvard. I'm just kind of looking at the Bills roster here. Like I said, it'd be really disappointed to see Mormon go. Just because, when he came back last year, he was so fired up. I went to one of the first games when he was back, and he was on the sidelines raising his hands like, "Oh, let's go, let's go." It was funny to watch. So that was a good time. But if the other kid's better, the other kid's better, and then Mormon will probably end up retiring or something, trying to go to a different team. At kick returning, we've got a lot of talent back there. We've got Marquise Goodwin, who is just so fast and so elusive that he may be small but it doesn't matter because he's going to get around a lot of these guys. He doesn't have to worry about them hitting him because he's just so fast. But Sammy Watkins, I'm pretty sure did return kicks in his college days. I'm pretty sure he was really, really good at it. Could be wrong though. I could be thinking of another rookie wide receiver that was taken in this draft. And then you got guys like Leotis McKelvin. He's one of the best punt returners in the league. Whether or not we utilize his skill set again is unknown. We could just keep him at corner, although it would be kind of stupid for us not to use him at punt returner. That was my phone. Sorry. And we could throw some other guys back there for punt returning. Marcus Easley, good special teams specialist at wide receiver. We got some other depth guys that we can throw in there. So I think we're all set for special teams. I would give that a solid A+ actually.
Strongest position for the worst team. Special teams. You know why that is? Because they punt a lot, and they have to have good kick returners because they have to return kicks so often. Dylan, what's your opinion going forward on the special teams of the Bills?
Well, starting with the kickers, I think Dan Carpenter was definitely solid for us last year. If we do keep Hopkins with us for this year, I don't think it's necessary, but I mean, it could be good, but it only helps us if that roster spot given to Hopkins is somebody we know won't be impacting the team in a positive way more so than Hopkins would. So there's pros and cons of the keeping two kickers. I don't know personally who. I'm sure as we get closer to the season, it'll narrow down more, but I guess we'll see who it comes down to possibly losing a spot on the team because if we do choose to keep two kickers on board. But I mean, I think Dan Carpenter's fine. Last year for us, it was the year where he had the second most field goal attempts of his career, and he had the highest field goal percentage of his career at 91.7%, making 33 of 36 field goals along with 55. So he came in and 91.7 is really good. So I think we keep him around definitely. I'm sure he'll maybe, I don't know where I was going with that. I'm sure he'll have a solid year for us if we do keep him around. He's only 28, so kickers generally, some of them usually can last a long time. And next, going on to punter. As Chris said, it would be disappointing to see Brian Moorman go. He's been a fan favorite for as long as he's been in Buffalo, and really there was like a 10-year stretch where he was our best player, so he had that going for him. That's probably part of the reason why we love him so much. But he's a great guy, great sideline guy, he's a great character guy, and he comes in, does his job, usually does it at a high level, and you gotta respect players like that. I do think that there is a chance this young guy, Dombrowski, is really good, and maybe he does win the job. If so, it would be sad to see Mormon go, but I wouldn't be. It wouldn't like. I don't know. I don't want to say it. It wouldn't break my heart to see him go, but it would definitely be sad because I mean he was such a big part of the Bills for a long time, and then he left for a couple of years, then he finally makes a return, and to see him go again, I do think he might retire if he doesn't beat out Dombrowski for the job. But I'm sure either whoever wins the job, I'm sure will be serviceable enough for us. I hope we don't do that much punting this year, but still got to make sure you have a good guy there in case you do need to punt. And on to kick and punt returns. I think the most likely guys to do them are Marquise Goodwin and Leotis McKelvin. Whether he did do it at a high level in college, I don't see Sammy Watkins as being much of a return guy. I think we would more so just focus on him being a big fixture in our offense and one of our top guys in our receiving core. Another sort of like wild card name I've read about is if people think, some people seem to think that we may try using CJ Spiller on kick returns. And again, that to me that's kind of like the Sammy Watkins situation. I think he'll be more so involved in the offense to where we may not use him there. Maybe he'll get a couple returns, but I don't see him being a commonly used player at that spot. So we do have some speed on our team, both offense and defense. I'm sure we'll find the guys to do the job and do it well. But I think Goodwin and McKelvin will fill in the jobs for the most part, and I think they can both be pretty successful at it during the season, and hopefully get us some good field position.
What grade do you give him?
If I had to grade our special teams, there aren't really any glaring weaknesses of it, so I would probably have to be in the high A A plus range, somewhere around there.
Okay. Once again, I'm going to be the lowest. But that's Carpenter is a good kicker. You shouldn't keep two though. Our team is not built to have two kickers because we have so many injuries, and as you see right now with two of our four tight ends out, you see Brett Jackson's already kind of dinged up. He couldn't practice this weekend, and things of that nature. We have a lot of injuries, and you know, I'd rather have that extra player than have two kickers. With you have to have the guys willing to run down the field and stop the player from coming back. And I think if you focus more on that and keeping like Marcus Easley and players like that around, it doesn't matter if you have a kickoff specialist or not because you'll be able to cover the kicks well. And that was our problem last year. I think we ranked 25th in the league at allowing, where the opposition started their drives after kickoffs, and maybe 23rd on punts. So that's a thing. Dombrowski, I'd prefer him to win. I know Brian Moorman. Everyone loves Brian Moorman. He was a great punter for a long time. Him and Shane Leckler, two of the best punters. It was a shame they were both in the AFC, or else Moorman and Leckler would have gotten Pro Bowls every year. And well, Dombrowski has a change of pace. We did that with what's his face last year? Was it Potter? I think it was. Yeah. No, Sean Powell. And he wasn't that good, and we brought Moorman back. Dombrowski, if he's doing better than Moorman right now, keep him. He's cheaper anyway. Save some money. Returning, leave Goodwin back there. McKelvin, he's not that valuable. You can keep him back there. And Watkins, I don't necessarily want to put back there, but once in a while, maybe for a change of pace, you maybe throw him out there for like, oh, let's plan to do a fake reverse or something on our kickoff or something crazy like that, because our team can do those things because we're going to lose if we do it, or we don't do it, we're still going to lose. It doesn't matter. So you can try things like that. Keep Spiller out of back there. He got injured last year a lot, and the last thing I want to see is our starting running back get injured on a kickoff. So, yeah, I'm going to give us a B. Good kicker. Marcus Easley, good special teams guy. Punter, blah. And our return game over the last decade, like our punt game, maybe have been the best in the NFL. We always have had top 5 return men. Roscoe Parrish. Then it was Leotis McKelvin. Then it was C.J. Spiller. Terrence McGee before there was Roscoe Parrish. Like, we've always had good return men. So, that's a thing. I think Devin Hester, speaking of return men, he's playing for Atlanta this year. So, fun fact. So I'm going to give them a B. Now we're going to talk about Ray Rice real quick. Got a 2-game suspension for punching his wife in the head in a hotel elevator. That's a thing. So people thought, 4 games, 6 games. People look at and say, oh well, those guys are smoking pot and you suspended them for a year. Well, that was after they got told not to once. Then they got suspended another time, and then they did it a third time. That's why they got suspended a year. So, you know what? They did it again. So, yeah. All right. Chris, I know you brought up the topic. You wanted this topic. So what's your opinion of the Ray Rice situation, and what do you think the NFL should really do to try and deter their players from making a mockery of the league in the public realm?
Well, um, I know I saw earlier somewhere that Ray Rice's wife, the victim in the situation, made a had an argument with Goodell to lessen Ray Rice's mm, sentence. I didn't. I don't. I'm gonna try and find it here. But when I saw that, it was just like it kind of reminded me of those movies or TV shows where you see the husband hitting the wife, and then when the cops show up or someone yells at the husband or tries to beat him up, the wife's just like, "Oh no, no, it was my fault. It was my fault." Ooh. It kind of reminded me of something like that. I didn't read the article, so I don't know what exactly was said. But that pisses me off that Ray Rice only got 2 games with a suspension. Even if his wife did make an argument to lessen his thing, it's it's ridiculous. He should have gotten like a 6-game suspension uh, at the least. Um, you know, people just people are ridiculous. They like I don't know. It's difficult. It's difficult for me, so because you got like all these guys getting suspended for smoking and doing all this other shit. Um, you see steroids in baseball, mostly weed for football, and and I don't know. If it's hard for me to talk about without like going crazy, because I seriously wish that Ray Rice would have just been suspended indefinitely. Because I mean, like in the video, he's just like dragging around like a rag doll. It's ridiculous. Like he beat her up, knocked her out, and then he only gets suspended for 2 games. Like, what kind of a punishment is that? Like, that's pathetic. Uh, uh, should have been multiple game suspension, couple $1 million fine. I don't know. If I was a team, I wouldn't want a player like that on my team. It's just showing that the NFL is just a bunch. That just kind of shows that the NFL is going to let thugs get away with whatever they want, and they're just going to be like, "Oh, you want to be a thug? Go ahead. Whatever. You want to beat shit out of your wife? Who cares?" Yeah, just kind of like a slap on the wrist. 2 games. Bad.
Chris is trying to hold himself back from, going on a angry, hate-filled response. Dylan, what is your opinion of the Ray Rice situation?
Well, I've always been I was always a fan of Ray Rice prior to this whole incident. I liked him as a running back, very talented, but I personally don't think 2 games is enough. I mean, I haven't seen anything of the video. I didn't watch it. Anything I know has been from it being spoken about via with you guys or on SportsCenter or in an article online. But I mean, he allegedly knocked out his wife unconscious, and it's pretty serious. You have to hit someone pretty hard to knock them out. Just maybe an obvious statement, but I mean, 2 games for that. I know Andy mentioned how the people getting suspended for a whole season because they're for smoking pot because they do it multiple times. Knocking your wife unconscious once is worse than being caught multiple times smoking marijuana. So, I mean, as not that I support, I mean, of course, still punish the guys who are smoking weed and breaking those rules, but I mean, Ray Rice should have faced a harsher punishment. Just recently, we've seen, I mean, even guys, I've been reading about Mike Prefer, the special teams coach of the Vikings. He was accused of using homophobic slurs by former punter Chris Cluey, and that was just an accusation. He got 3 games, and I know using homophobic slurs isn't acceptable, I know, but he got 1 more game than a guy who physically hit his wife and knocked her out in an elevator, and we saw Robert Mathis. He got suspended for 4 games for substance abuse, violating the drug policy, and it turned out it was a fertility drug because he and his wife are trying to conceive a child, and so that ends up being worse than what Ray Rice did. I don't know. There's inconsistencies and suspensions throughout most sports, and this is just another one that we've seen. I think the NFL should have given him a little bit more than what they did. I know it's Ray Rice's first time ever violating any rules or anything, but I still think it's a pretty big deal. I personally think he should have gotten more games suspended, but obviously that's not up to me, so I guess we can't change it now.
In response to the Minnesota thing, real quick, the Minnesota coach isn't even suspended by the NFL. He got suspended by Minnesota. So the NFL actually hasn't even, the NFL didn't do anything in regards to him. The owner of the Minnesota Vikings suspended him for 3 games, which is saying, well, the Minnesota Vikings owner may be a little bit harsher than Roger Goodell, I guess, but uh, I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm just, I don't know. You look at it, you should be suspended for more than 2 games. That's for sure. 2 games is nothing. That's less than what they do at first. First offenses get 4 games, and that's where we start. And it went to grand jury and got dismissed. So, you have to say they tried to charge him, and the case got dismissed because there wasn't enough evidence to say that he knocked her out. She didn't say that he knocked her. Well, it's alleged. I don't think she said he knocked her out. She might have, but I know she didn't cooperate. People believe she didn't cooperate in court, and that's why it got dismissed because she didn't want her husband to go to jail for knocking her out. Which, I can understand her saying that. I understand him getting suspended for more than 2 games too. So, you don't know what's going on in that elevator. I don't know if Ray Rice was drunk. Maybe that could have been a reason why he did it, which isn't a good reason either at all. And I'm not supporting the reason. I'm just saying, things could have led to that. It doesn't make any sense. You have to hit someone really hard to knock them out. So that's a thing. It's not enough, and 4 games is the beginning. 6 games. If he got charged with something, I would have said, okay, we're going like 8 games to a full season with this one. You got charged. It's been proven that you did what you did. But it's not proven what he did. It's assumed, and there's video evidence of him dragging his wife through there, and everyone says he did knock her unconscious, but according to the court records, he didn't. So that's the thing. That's kind of why Big Ben only got suspended 6 games for rape. You kidding me? You don't think he raped that girl? Even Goodell thinks he raped the girl because he gave him 6 games and he wasn't even convicted. So, like Goodell gave Ray Rice 2. He gave Big Ben 6 for rape. Like, I guess in that scale, knocking your wife unconscious with one punch might be 2 games if the scale for rape is 6. But then again, you're getting into how much worse is rape than, punching your wife in the head. Now we're getting into topics that aren't really related to sports. But it wasn't enough, but I don't see it being more than at maximum 6 games. It's his first offense. I think 4 or 6 would have been correct and just because of, the situation. And, if he was convicted, it should have been more. Fantasy value. Ray Rice has fantasy value now. I can keep him. All right. Now it's time to talk about, well, actually, who knows? I don't know what your final words are. But, that was our topics for the show. We are at an hour and 56 minutes, so we will clear the hour mark once again. I think we cleared the hour mark all but maybe one show. So we're pretty proud of that right now. Excuse me. So that's the thing. Who wants to go first on their final word?
I'll go.
Dylan, you may go
So,
first.
tonight I'm going to talk about baseball. No surprise there. The 2014 Baseball Hall of Fame class was inducted today, consisting of Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, Frank Thomas, Bobby Cox, Tony La Russa, and Joe Torre. 6 very deserving members. I know I've spoke a little bit about them after the class was announced, and so it's well deserved by all of them. It's always cool to see players like this and guys who have that's kind of been seen, like most of these guys' careers have taken place during our lifespan, so we've been able to see some of them. I mean, Joe Torre was manager of the Yankees forever, greatest manager of all time. Maybe not, but he was the manager of the Yankees that I grew up with. Obviously, I love Joe Girardi right now, but I mean, Greg Maddux pitched until 2008. Glavine pitched till 2008. Both very good players on the Braves for all those years. Frank Thomas, he also played till 2008. Another first ballot Hall of Famer. Very, very impressive career. Over 500 home runs. Bobby Cox, manager for 22 years. 32 years, my bad. I'll learn math someday. Tony La Russa managed for 32 years about. So it's always cool to see when players get elected in the Hall of Fame to look back on their careers and how successful they were and how they earned their spot in the Hall of Fame. And my final word's kind of a two-parter because I can't talk baseball without talking Derek Jeter a little bit. So Tom Seaver, he was a pitcher in the MLB from 1967 to 1986. Was a successful 20-year career. Career 2.86 ERA. He won 3 Cy Youngs. He was Rookie of the Year back in '67. A bunch of All-Star appearances. A bunch of appearances in the Cy Young Award voting, whether in the range of like 2nd through 5th and etc. He's currently the player who has the highest vote percentage inducted into the Hall of Fame at 98.84%, and he was inducted in 1992. Recently, he was asked about if Derek Jeter will be the first unanimous guy, and he is quoted as saying, "I can't see how he won't be." So I've been advocating, I'm sure I've talked about it on the show, how I think Derek Jeter will be the first unanimous Hall of Famer. There will always be the case, why wasn't Mickey Mantle unanimous? Why wasn't Babe Ruth unanimous? And Ted Williams, Carl Yastrzemski, all these great players. But And I know those arguments will never go away because they weren't voted in unanimously. And I'm not saying they didn't. They all definitely deserve to be voted in unanimously. But since nobody has done it yet, I think it's a very real possibility that Derek Jeter can and will be the first guy unanimously selected. It would be a great career. I was surprised to see that the leader, Tom Seaver, had 98.84%. So nobody's ever cracked like 99% of the votes, and I don't remember exactly, but I know there's isn't if I'm not mistaken, there's 200 or so something voters. You may not want to quote me on that. I don't have the exact figures with me, but Jeter will be eligible in 2020. He's definitely going to be first ballot, whether he's unanimous or not. I think he should be. I'm sure there's plenty other people who think he should be. Tom Seaver agrees, and that's a great person to have backing you up as the current percentage leader. So, but again, I do understand if you want to argue in favor of, like, if Babe Ruth wasn't unanimous, nobody should ever be unanimous or something like that. But I think it'll happen. So maybe in 5 years on the Golden Sports Report, I'll be able to break the news to you about Derek Jeter's unanimous induction. So, and that's my final word.
Dylan and his Derek Jeter. Just match made in heaven. Chris, you have the floor, sir.
Oh, the floor. Well, sometime last football season, I think it's around October if these dates are right here. I talked about Adrian Peterson's son. He was killed, and I talked about the man who was suspected of doing it, being indicted. He was eventually released on bond for $75,000. He was actually just arrested again and has been charged once again with the death of Adrian Peterson's son. I seriously hope that this guy, he's pled he's pled not guilty, but as much as I can remember, I'm pretty sure all the evidence was stacked against him, and I'm not positive on that. So if this is the guy, I hope they get him and they nail him to the wall, but you never know. You never know with that. I wanted to add a second part on a lighter note of the of my final word here. The Madden 15 rankings have been released. This is kind of like for any football gamer type dudes out there. And the Bills actually had a couple in the top fives of some of the positions. Well, top five in one of them, and then top five in all the rookies. I think Sammy Watkins was ranked number 3 in the overall for all the rookies. He had like an 80 overall, so if you guys who play Madden know what that means, that's pretty good for a rookie. Thank you, Andy, for joining this video call. Whatchamacallit? And Kyle Williams was ranked tied for 3rd, I do believe. Technically in 4th with defensive tackles with a 95 overall, so that's pretty good for him. We're still waiting. I'm still waiting on They're still waiting on like linebackers, corners, and safeties too. So I imagine those will be out sometime in the next month or couple weeks actually. So
So, um, hmm. So you can hear me or no?
yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry about that. The internet kind of just shit itself. So I assume by you muting yourself, you gave up the floor. Okay. And I was interested in that too. So my final word, I have two NASCAR final words, I guess, and I get to choose which one. I'm gonna do like a little recap of today's race and then talk about what I really want to talk about. But Jeff Gordon won his fifth Brickyard 400, breaking the tie of Jimmy Johnson. And I kind of thought Jeff Gordon was, well, I didn't think he was going to win, but it was between him and Jimmy Johnson, and I was hoping Jimmy would lose, and he did. So I'm pretty happy about that. Um, it was the first time he got to kiss the bricks with his two kids, and that was a big deal. You know that his family was down there, and he's born in Indiana, and that is his home track, and arguably the most historic track in the world in terms of racing. And he now is tied with Michael Schumacher from Formula One for the most wins ever at the racetrack. So he's very he's honored to do that, as he knows all the history of that track growing up near the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So that's a thing. Casey Kane could have won, but he spun. He didn't spin the tires, but he kind of fucked up on the restart, and he said he would have ran out of gas anyway. He didn't get very good fuel mileage, but he was running first with 25 laps left when they were doing a restart, and Gordon just powered by him on the outside. And you know, they give the first place guy the head start, if you will. He's allowed to determine how fast the team, like cars, are going before they get to the starting line. Like he can kind of let off and then just hit the throttle real fast, and everyone else is like still, you know, in not noticing that he's about to hit the throttle and just, you know, hit it. But those tenths of a second matter a lot in NASCAR. So Gordon still made that up within the first turn. By far the best car of the day. He just could pass anybody he wanted to, and you know, he deserved the win. He's the points leader, and I believe he has his first place in the chase too with 3 wins. He might be tied for third with 2 wins, but you know, he said he would retire if he won his fifth championship this year, and everyone was like, "Well, I don't think you're gonna win a fifth championship because you haven't really been in contention in the last like 10 years." He might win a fifth championship, so yeah, he's on pace to do it. And that's incredible for a man of his stature. Right now, everyone's saying, "Oh, you're kind of injured with a broken back." Well, not broken back, but bad back and things like that from all these 200-mile-per-hour crashes he's in. And he's like, you know, I'm gonna go as long as my back holds out, and you know, I want to be able to play with my kids and things of that nature. And you know, he's having a great season, arguably one of his best. So that's a thing. Other news, Roush Racing, my team, they have 3 drivers: Carl Edwards in the 99, Greg Biffle in the 16, and Ricky Stenhouse in the 17. Um, they announced their next year lineup, the next year driver lineup for NASCAR's Top Series. And Carl Edwards will not be there. He is parting ways. The 99 is going to not be on the track next year. He is moving to. He's not announcing where he's going. He's not allowed to until next 2 months from now. But it's more than likely that he's going to Joe Gibbs Racing, following former Roush driver Matt Kenseth, who left 2 years ago. So that's a thing. they're bringing up Trevor Bayne from Nationwide, the AAA series to NASCAR, and he's going to drive the Great Six car that was Roush's car for 30 years. He didn't drive it personally, but he'd always had him to drive her in it. He had Mark Martin in it for 15, 20 years. Mark Martin finished second in points 4 times with that car. And yeah, Carl Edwards, he had, I believe, like 64 wins over the 3 series. He's won a Nationwide Series title. He finished second place in the 2011 Cup Series championship standings and lost by a tiebreaker to Tony Stewart. They were tied at the end. And not only were they tied at the end, but they were tied on the first tiebreaker. So they had to go to the second tiebreaker to break it. Like they were tied for who had more wins. Like the first tiebreaker is who has more wins. Then it's who has more second place finishes. And Tony Stewart won. So, I thought that was kind of crazy that, you're tied that close. They had to go to 2 tiebreakers. But Edwards says his current situation isn't the best that he could be in, and he's taking him and his Subway commercials to Joe Gibbs Racing. So that's a thing. I'm disappointed because Roush doesn't really have a good set of drivers for next year. It's going to be probably pretty disappointing. So that's a thing. I'm sure you guys really enjoyed that. So like, comment, favorite, subscribe. We should have both shows this week. Looking at the schedule, we have it set up where we should have 3 and 3. If things get in the way, we can still pull a 2 if we have to. So that's good. The Bills play next Sunday. I might move that show up. We don't know. I gotta look at the schedule first and then. So like, comment, favorite, subscribe. We like when you comment. And share with your friends if you liked it. If you didn't like it, tell us why. You never have, but we'd like to. And yeah, so thank you for watching. That was the Golden Sports Report, episode 80. Bye.
Peace out.
Adios.